And if you get everybody into that mindset, boom, results will just fall from the sky and people will love it, and they'll start setting stretch goals for themselves.
Well, good morning. We'll get started. Some folks will continue to join here in the next couple minutes, but excited to get started and see everybody, and excited to have a conversation with Gordon again, who has a unique career path. You know, when we talked the other day, there's a little bit of rebellion in Gordon's style. he developed, I'd say, a lot of your leadership style by just going and carving your own path. And it'll be interesting to have you share some of that about how you observed the leadership of others and observed what worked and what didn't work, and turned a non-traditional path into leadership and speaking. So why don't you go back and tell us a little bit about that early journey, Gordon, and some of the things you learned along the way?
So I started getting leadership experience when I played sport. You know, lots of creating teams. Great teams will beat a collection of great players anytime. So, you know, that really taught me the value of teamwork. And then in my career, I started working in IT, in programming. And the career path was a little bit slow. You had to be a year at this, and then 2 years as a junior, then 2 years as a senior. And I thought, I don't want to do that. That's way too slow. And I thought the path to rapid acceleration was to take on the complicated projects. And I did that and became successful. Then I got asked to lead complex projects. And that's where I kind of developed not so much my own approach, but, you know, when you look at the statistics for project success rate, it's around 30%. 70% of projects fail. So following the standard approach is going to lead to the standard result, which is failure. So by taking on complex projects, I was able to, you know, and being the only person that was keen to do it, it allowed me to challenge the approach and look to do things differently, and built a reputation of in that area, and just managed to move on to bigger and larger projects, running $100 million projects, leading teams of 1,000 people, doing department and organizational turnarounds as well. So that's kind of like the career path. And then I worked at a company, and we talked about this, where the goal was to save 240 million, and I saved them 350 million, so another 140 million more than they were looking. And they wanted to do that, but just have a performance drop of 5%. You know, 240 million and a 5% performance drop was deemed okay. I improved it to 350 million, and I improved performance by between 50 and 500%. And for 3 years in a row, my boss ranked me, based on those results, absolute bottom of the people that reported to him. And he said that was it wasn't based on the results. They loved the results, but they hated my leadership. They thought my leadership sucked. And I should lead more like the other people that weren't generating the same results I was. So I came out of my last performance review and decided, right, I'm going to become a world-class leadership expert, just to show you who knows what about leadership. And that kind of got me into the speaking, writing, and coaching realm. I do like to stick my finger in the eye of the bear from time to time.
Yeah, you had a number of those stories you were talking about the other day, of times you've not shied away from confrontation to stand for what you believed in.
Well, I think the problem for me was that I was working really, really hard on projects that kept failing, and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I want a shot at succeeding. And so I was quite happy to just stand up and say, excuse me, this ain't going to work. You know, we need to change the plan. We need to be doing this, this, and this. And you know, I was happy to take accountability for the outcomes, because a lot of the time things just drifted towards failure, with everybody wanting to be captain if we got it successfully to Paul. But if it was going to fail, they could all kind of step back and say, it wasn't me. So there was always a time when things were going tough to just step forward and say, I'll take ownership, and if it doesn't work, I'll take the stick with this. But if you're going to let me do that, then you're going to let me do it my way. I ain't going to fail your way. I'm either going to cede my way or I ain't doing it.
So when you talk about that experience where you were driving exceptional results that didn't fit in the culture, describe that. Is that like a culture that rewards mediocrity, that rewards conformity? What's that look like?
So I was working in Germany, and it was very much a command and control culture. And I remember one of my staff, Monica, I went into her office, knocked on the door, went into her office, and she just went white. And I said, what's wrong? She said, I don't know. You tell me what's wrong. I said, well, I don't know what's wrong. You've gone white. And she said, yeah, because I don't know what's gone wrong. And I said, okay, let's just start again. Hey, how are you doing? And she was like, I'm fine. And I said, why have you come to see me? And I was like, no reason. I just thought I'd pop in and see whether you needed anything. And she just kind of, you just saw a wave of relief. And she said to me, the guy that I worked for before, in 10 years, he never once stepped foot into my office. If he wanted to speak to me, I would get an invitation 2 weeks beforehand, and I would have to sit outside in the reception, and his secretary would allow me to go in when it was my turn. And I said, well, I'm not like that. If I want to see you, I'm coming now. And the same with me. My door is always open. And if you want to, even if I'm in a meeting, if I need to know something right now, and I'll give you that authority to interrupt anything I'm doing. And I'll tell you a funny story about that got me into that. When I was in school, I was studying geography. I was about 15. And one of the kids came into the class and was like, sir. And the teacher went ballistic with him. How dare you interrupt my lesson? Get out now, and you wait out there, and you knock on the door, and you can only come in when I say so. So the kid goes out. The guy made a big deal of making him wait outside, and ultimately he said, come in. And the kid came in really sheepishly, and he said, what is it? And he said, we just had a call and your house is burning down. And I always remember that my team know if it's burning down and if I need to know. So I had that very open communication style, very close to the team, supporting the team, and all of the peer managers, they didn't want to do that. One of the guys that had the office next to me, he had an open door policy. His door was open between 2 and 4. And I tried to tell him that an open door policy has got nothing to do with the physical door. It's about whether you're approachable or not. But he said, no, it's not. It's about the door. I was like, okay, it's all about the door. So it was that style that, and giving my teams the freedom to be successful. I was all about, if I set people up to be successful, in my experience, 99.9% will take it. Whereas the others, it was you just kind of told them what they had to do, and left them to get on with it without support. And I found that didn't work. But they wanted me to deliver the great results the way they did it, because that would then justify their leadership style.
So out of all that, you developed what you call the FAST method.
Yeah, so FAST was I was coaching somebody for an interview, and I asked them, what are your top 3 strengths? And they said, I don't know, what are yours? And I said, actually, I don't know, because I would normally answer honest, hardworking, and determined. But actually, there's loads of people that do that, that still fail. So I went back and I thought, you know, I've been doing this turnaround stuff for 20 years. Do I have a process that I follow subconsciously, which I could make conscious and then systematize and teach to other people? And I found my superpower is keeping things simple. Sometimes it seems a little bit too simple, but it's the way to go. And what I found was that every time I was in a turnaround situation, I did two things. I figured out what wasn't working and I fixed it. So that was my approach. And then I thought, okay, are there some things that are commonly not working that I'm fixing repeatedly? And that's where I came up with FAST. And it was about what I found was that in my experience and in the research I did, things fail for four reasons. One, a lack of focus. And focus is about what is our goal? What's our objective? Do we have clarity about what we're trying to achieve? Secondly, it's about accountability, which is about the who. Do we know who's involved? Have we communicated to them that are involved and what we expect of them? And have we given them the tools to be successful? And then it's about simplicity, which is about the how. Do we know how we're going to get from where we are to where we need to be? And then the last was about transparency. And transparency is about two things: truth and knowledge. It's about the knowledge of what's involved. You know, if you want to have a baby, if you commit to anything less than 9 months, you are doomed to fail. So do we know how long it's going to take and what's involved, so we don't make commitments we can't meet? And then the second thing is, it's about the truth. You know, if you want to lose 20 pounds, do you know how much you weighed at the start of this? Do you know how much you've weighed today? Are you making progress towards it? If you are, great. If you're not, maybe we need to change that 3 donut breakfast diet for something else. So that's the thing that I found. And what I also found was that if you improve focus and accountability, that drives effectiveness. And if you improve simplicity and transparency, that helps drive efficiency. And if you can drive effectiveness and efficiency, you will knock the ball out of the park nearly every single time. So not only was I able to turn it around and get it back on track, I was actually able to help the organizations achieve far better results than they were actually expecting to achieve. There was one we were achieving 70 critical outages per month with a 12-hour downtime per outage. And by applying FAST and understanding what was involved, and that our goal was not to fix things, but to get to restore service as quickly as possible, we got that down to 5 a month with an average of 2 hours. And that was a huge performance improvement for the business, less disruption, and allowed them to better serve their customers.
If you've got any questions for Gordon, type in the chat and we will bring you on. You know, what has been your experience teaching FAST? Have you seen people adopt that and then come back and tell you, wow, that really worked? Have you had people come back and tell you the culture wasn't right for them at their place and they couldn't make it work?
So I was approached by a major UK bank about doing speaking, and they asked me to come in and do an interview about what I would speak about. And I told them what I was going to speak about, and the head of operations said, you know, I don't think FAST would help us. And I went, well, yeah, obviously, because in banks, you know, you need less focus, less accountability, less simplicity, and less transparency. And he looked at him and he went, well, that's right. You don't need less of those. You need more of those. And that's why this talk is going to be critical. And I went and did a good talk for them. But the first time I did the talk on FAST, I talked about an experience I had where I was brought in to improve performance. And the problem was we had 47 key performance indicators, all of them green, and the customer ready to fire us out of a cannon. They would have gone anywhere else if they didn't have to deal with us. And when I came in, I said, okay, how many of the 47 KPIs were agreed with the business? None of them. Okay, then let's throw them away and let's go and find out what's important to the business. And the business said there are 3 things that are important to us: availability of the system, how long it takes you to make a fix, and the speed of response when we're using it. So we got rid of the 47 KPIs and we just had 3. And if you've got 3 KPIs, it's easy to focus on that. If you've got 47, you can't focus on 47. So now you're not focused on everything. And I gave the talk, and 2 of the professors at the university, by the time I got back, I had an email from them saying, I can't tell you how many KPIs I had because I'd be embarrassed. But what I can tell you is I've now got 3. So people like it because it's simple, but it does require to to sometimes look and make hard decisions and ask some tough questions.
Let's go to Mike Kinney.
Gordon, hey, great to hear your success and your system. But hey, bottom line, just very fast, what's the major difference between your FAST system and the others that were failing? And I think you've outlined that, but you've told us what you've done. What were they not doing? That's one. And then number 2, what did they not like about your leadership style despite your outstanding results? And why was that such an issue in light of how effective you were?
So what they didn't like about my leadership style, I'll start with that one, is that I got reported to HR. We had a conference and I wanted to break down the barriers between the teams. And I thought, how can I break down the barriers? And one of the things I did was, at my strategy conference, 2 of my good friends from Latin America, because I had a global team all over, they came in and they both gave me a big hug, big bear hug. And I thought, wow, if you can hook somebody, you can ask them for help. That's good. So I started hugging people. Nobody had any issue with it, but I created a very close bond and connection with my team. Somebody actually put a sign on my office door, free hugs, and people would come and knock on the door and ask for a hug. And then I got invited to HR, and I was told if I hugged one more person, I would be fired. And I said, but these people are coming to me. I'm not like, chasing all the women around trying to hug them. A lot of these are guys, and they're asking me, and they went, no, we don't want to do that. It's command and control. Bosses are always 2 levels away. And I said, but if you disconnect, you've disengaged, and now you've got unengaged teams, surely. And they said, no, you're wrong. Our leadership style's best, and you have to get the same results using our style. And it was purely about that. And some of them, and I had a team of 1,000 people, so it was difficult to create a connection with 1,000 people. Some of the others only had teams of 15 and 20, but still wanted that distance. You could only go to their office to speak to them. You couldn't interrupt them when they were walking down the hallway. There was a clear hierarchy. The power distance in Germany was quite steep. But I'd worked in Holland where there is no power distance. The cleaner will tell the CEO to stop parking his car in the bloody wrong parking space, if he's done wrong, the CEO accepts that. So it was that they didn't like. And then when it comes back to the other things, I think, I've used Prince 2 project management methods, PMI, I've used Agile. They all work, but if you're not focused on the right thing, then you're going to fail. So FAST isn't an alternative to Agile, Prince, or PMI. It's a philosophy that sits around it. So I was working with a business and they said to me, I said, have you got clear goals? And I went, yep, we've got clear goals. Are they SMART goals? Specific, measurable, relevant, time bound? And they went, yep. I said, so tell me what it is. And they said, so specific, we want to increase our revenue by 50%. And it's measurable because we can measure that. And it's time bound because we want to do it in 2 to 4 years. And I said, well, is it 2 or 4 years? Because if it's 2 years, we've got to increase revenue 25% every year. And that'll be one plan. Or if it's in 4 years and it's 12.5% per year, and that's a different plan. So what is it you're telling your team to do? 25% or 12.5%? And how will they know whether they've done a good job or not? And I'm not saying be aggressive and go, double it 50% in 2 years. I'm just saying be clear about it so we can put one plan that will lead us there. And the same with accountability. And for me, accountability is about taking ownership. I'm just working on a program with Fujitsu, and we've got a ridiculously tight deadline, and we've got to buy loads of hardware. So I asked the hardware procurement guy, give me go in and check all the lead times of the hardware, and when we need it, to tell us when we should have ordered it by. And he sent me back a spreadsheet with about 1,000 lines in it. And I thought, I can't read this, let's have a meeting to talk about it. And he just said to me, I said, do we have any issues? And he went, oh God, yeah. There's 3 pieces of hardware we should have ordered in May. Well, we haven't done that, have we? And he went, no. I said, so why haven't you raised the risk? Why haven't you raised the flag? And he said, it's not my job. My job's to buy the hardware and to figure out when we should have bought it. But it's not my job to correct that. And one of the things I emphasize with accountability is it's giving people accountability for outcomes. So I don't want you to just follow the purchasing process and buy the hardware. I want you to buy it for when we need it. And you can do whatever you want, because he said, if we're buying it from Cisco, they've got a lead time of 180 days. And I went, well, is there anybody else? Oh yeah, there's another distributor who could give it to us in 3 weeks. Well, buy it from them then. Buy it from them. So it's about getting people to take ownership, empowering them, and getting them to feel accountable and a part of the success. Whereas it doesn't matter whether you're using agile, waterfall, whatever. If people don't own it, they're constantly producing reports that saying this will fail, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not even going to shout to you about it. And it's about getting people involved and engaged at a higher level, either escalating so we can do things about it, or empowered to do something. And one of the things I always tell people is that I'm in charge, and what that means is I'm accountable if this fails. So I want every single person to be successful. And whatever I can do to make you successful is going to make me successful. So come and ask me. Don't wait. Give me. I am the nicest guy in the world. If you come to me and say, if I change the supplier today, we can get that. I am the worst person in the world if you come to me and say, oh, by the way, if we'd have changed suppliers 4 weeks ago, we'd have been golden. But now the project's down the toilet. Because if that happens, I will go batshit crazy. I'm sorry, but and I feel okay to do that. But if we've had that conversation and we set that tone, then everybody knows where they are, everybody knows their expectation. So it's about it's about creating a culture and getting everybody to ask that question, do I know where I'm going? Do I know what success looks like? Do I know what's expected? Do I have empowerment? Do I know how I'm going to do it? And do I know where I am on the journey? And if you get everybody into that mindset, boom, results will just fall from the sky, and people will love it, and they'll start setting stretch goals for themselves of their own free will to just push performance, especially if you recognize their success. And I'm a huge fan. I believe that success starts with recognition. And people ask me, you know, we should recognize success. And I said, well, I think you should recognize effort. And they say, no way, that's completely wrong. And then I asked the question, when your child took its first 3 steps and plonked onto its bottom, what did you do? We applauded. Okay, had your child broke the 100-meter world record? Had they completed a marathon? No, they'd taken the first baby steps. And I want to encourage them to keep going, because I know that's the path to running and to walking and running. Yeah, same with your team. Applaud the baby steps, but you don't keep applauding them. You keep raising the bar, and the team will go with it. So it's about having that fast environment, and then, you know, recognition and feedback that allows them to be successful. And you apply that with any methodology and you'll be successful. You ignore that, and with any methodology, you've a good chance of failing.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Let's go to Chantel.
Hi, I missed this group. It's been a long time, but I am really, I'm intrigued by something that's happening in the organization I work for, and I wanted to get your opinion on it.
Okay.
I work for a company of 200,000 people, and we're going through a massive operating model change.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't been very successful, I think, because they didn't get input early on from the people that they needed to make it successful.
Yeah.
But with that many people, it's very hard to get input from everybody. So right now, as they roll it down through the organization, they're sort of trading buy-in for input. But what's happening is it's like the org model pattern, because they're trading buy-in for input, is getting more and more morphed into different ways, right? It's like we started with a shirt and we said, here's a shirt, and to get your buy-in, you want to rip off a sleeve, and to get your buy-in, you want to add a pocket. So what do you think about that?
So my father-in-law used to tell me a camel was a horse designed by a committee, and we kind of need to keep the input into what we're trying to design to a small group. But what we should be asking for is input into how do we achieve it? Because if this is our operating model, this is our operating model. This is what we've decided. We cannot allow every single one of 200,000 people to contribute to what it's going to be. But what you can do, and where we want your contribution, is how do we do this? And the other thing you've got to do is you've got to explain to people why this is beneficial to them. I did a transformation where we had 270 on-site consultants, and we wanted to move the work over to India, and the consultants were all externals, and we were paying $1,000 a day, and we could get that same work done for 200 in India. And I said to them, look guys, the reason why we're doing this is because if we can get the work done for 200, then for every single $800 we were spending on that piece of work, we can now invest into new work. That new work, new projects will allow us to help our business grow. And what I'm going to do is a lot of the maintenance work that you were doing, which if you want to keep doing that, then you're going to need to learn Hindu and move to India, because we're only paying $20 a day for that work. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move you up the value chain. I'm going to make you consultants. I'm going to make you managers. I'm going to make you business analysts. And I'm going to improve your skill set that will make you more valuable in the market. And this is why you need to be in it, because the change we're going through is happening everywhere. So part of this change is going to be to give you the skill set to earn more money here and be a more valuable asset in the marketplace going forward. And when people can see what's in it for them, they're much more likely to want to buy in. I worked for DHL, and we did an organizational change, and I'd only just joined, and they were explaining it, and I'm fairly smart, and I couldn't understand what they were doing. And I asked one of the senior vice presidents, I said, I don't understand this. Could you explain it to me? And he said, look, you're new. Skip this one. There'll be another change along in 18 months. Figure out how to understand that one. And I thought, that's a senior vice president telling me, skip this change and go with the next one. And so when we're driving these changes, it's got to have management buy-in from everybody, and it's got to be simple to understand. People can follow. I always say people are not afraid of hard work, they're afraid of failure. And what we need to do is simply explain what it is we're going to do, why it's beneficial, and how they can be successful. And when you can do that, people will enroll in it. If they don't understand the change, the easiest thing to do is resist it. If the change doesn't benefit me, then why should I get involved at all? So I would focus on small group defining what it is we're doing, enroll everybody in the how, but tell them what the benefit is in it for them, and do that in a simple way that they can understand and enroll in. They didn't do that, did they?
Well, so what's interesting is I think it's about perception, right? So, and I'm sitting in the change office. That's my job. So they've gone, for example, they've gone from like 27 different market lead heads down to 4, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So it sounds more simple, right? But then they've layered regions and domains and it gives you the feeling that they're replacing one complex model with another complex model, and people don't understand it.
So then the next question is, so what's the benefit? And if that question doesn't get answered, then I ain't moving. If it doesn't benefit me or the company, I'm not going to do that. And Einstein says something about simplicity, which I love, and that is, everything should be made as simple as possible and no more. And whilst it might be simpler at the top, because there's 4 heads, if it's complex, more complex down at the operating level, then overall it's more complex. My favorite story of simplicity, and I apologize that you're all Americans, is, do you know the story about the digicam camouflage? The US Army decided that they had too many different types of camouflage uniforms. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to go with one camouflage that would work in jungle, desert, mountain. And they spent $5 billion on it. And the reason why it was so expensive is because you had to paint all the weapons the same color. And this camouflage was green and gray. And I don't know if you've ever been to Afghanistan or Iraq, but it's brown. And they simplified it by having one camouflage, but that camouflage did not work in any one of the environments they wanted to use it in. So you spent $5 billion, but it feels like it should be simpler, but the only way you can get one camouflage that works anywhere that I've seen is the one that they used in Predator, the movie. And I'm not sure whether that exists or not, or whether $5 billion would be enough to buy it for you. They would have been better off saying, we'll have one camouflage for mountain, one for desert, one for jungle, and one for Arctic, rather than trying to come up with one that worked everywhere. And when they asked one of the people, why did they do it? They said, because the Marines had come up with a new camouflage and the Army were jealous. So they wanted to come up with something that was more distinctive. And I thought, I'm not an English major, but I don't think camouflage and distinctive mean the same thing. the last thing you want an outfit to be is distinctive. You want it to blend in. So we have to be careful about simplicity. Don't oversimplify to the point of complexity. Simplicity is a circle. It's not a line with complex at one end and simple at the other. It's a circle. And the simpler you make it, the nearer to complex you get. And if you just go a little bit too far, you've made it crazy complex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good insights. Thank you for that.
And if you want to talk some more about it, just reach out. I'd be happy to give you some more specific thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Simple communication is key.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you can't describe what it is you're communicating, it doesn't matter how good the communication is.
I was doing some work with the CEO, and he gave me the he said we come with a new vision, and he gave it to me on a piece of paper, and I just folded it and put it in my pocket. And he said, "Are you going to read it?" And I said, "No, you're going to tell me it." He said, "What?" And I said, "You're going to tell me what the vision is." And he said, "Well, the thing is, could you give me the paper back, because I can't quite remember." And I thought, you wrote it and you can't remember it. That's a sign, and it's not a good sign. You know, keep it simple. Have a very simple one sentence that everybody can understand. Otherwise, if you can't remember it, nobody remember it, and it will not be the vision.
You had a great story when we spoke about taking a hard task and breaking it down into small achievements when you turned yourself into a marathoner, when everybody looked at you and said, "You're not a marathoner."
Yeah, so when I was 52, I decided I had several female friends who were all going through chemotherapy. And interestingly, the year before, I'd been asked to run a marathon relay, just 10 kilometers, and I trained and I couldn't do it. And the following year, these 7 friends were all doing chemo, and I thought, okay, I want to do something to help. I'll raise money for cancer charity. Oh crap, I'm going to have to run a marathon. And I thought, okay, I'm doing it. Now I had the focus. I knew why I was doing it. I had a purpose rather than just, hey, will you do it? Now I really wanted to do it. And I told my 2 best friends, I said, I want to run a marathon. And they said, slow down there. You're too fat. You're too old. You're too unfit. And I said, but I have a simple plan. I've researched it, and I'm going to use the Virgin, the Richard Branson Virgin Company marathon plan that they use for the people doing the London Marathon. And it starts with running 15 minutes a day for a week. And I said, could I do that? And they went, yep. And I said, okay. Second week, you run 15 minutes a day. You take Saturday off, and then you run 20 on Sunday. And then the following week, you run 20 minutes, take Saturday off, and run 25 on Sunday. And they said to me, are you going to run 5 minutes more every week? And I said, yeah, but in 26 weeks, that'll get me within touching distance of 4 hours, which gets me within touching distance of the marathon finishing line. And they looked at me and they said, we'll do it with you, because they could see how incrementally, with a 5-minute improvement every week, and after 6 weeks, that 5 minutes will be a 10-minute, because it's still the same percentage. With an incremental increase, we could get there and understand and be able to do it. And 6 months later, the 3 of us ran the marathon. So it's one of the things I'm always keen about. If I can explain it to people so they can understand, and if they believe in the plan, that's going to give them confidence to get in, start, and get it done. Research by IBM on projects that fail, 75% of the time, people knew day one the project had no chance. Now, that's going to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't think it's going to work, as soon as you start to see it fail, you're going to go, I told you so. If you believe it's going to work and you start to see it fail, you're going to step forward and say, what's going wrong? What do we need to do to fix it? If we can give our teams the belief that it's going to work, and they buy into the plan, when it starts to fail, they'll be fixing it. If not, they'll be in I told you so mode. And if your teams are in I told you so mode, you are doomed to failure. And I suspect that's where a lot of your teams are with that change program.
What about the mixture of folks in the team? You believe in it, you can see it, you know it's achievable, but you got folks in the organization that are saying this is going to fail. How do you get them on board or get them out?
Why is it going to fail? Tell me why it's going to fail. Because I have to ask that question, because you might be right. You know, I don't work in marketing, you do. And if we're doing something wrong, tell me what it is you think we're going to do that's going to, why it's going to fail. Then tell me. And if I don't see that, and I can explain to you, actually, no, you don't understand it, this is why it will work, then I'm going to get them into the other camp. But also as well, if I understand and see their point, my question then would be, so what do you need for this to work? And whatever it is they tell me, I give them, because I want it to work. You know, as a leader, my job is not to set people up for failure, it's to set them up for success. And if I know they're going to fail because I haven't given them the tools, I'm accountable. And you know what the easiest way to make, you can't make people accountable. You can make them responsible, but accountability and ownership is something that we accept. I decide whether I own this and I'm going to be accountable. Yeah, I might be responsible, but I decide. And do you know what's the one thing you can do to get people to accept accountability? It's a very simple question you can ask people. Anybody any ideas what that is? Do you have everything you need in order to be successful? And when they say yes, mentally, they've now flipped, I've got this. And a lot of leaders say, but what happens if they say no? Well, give them whatever it is they need, and then they'll accept accountability. That's our job as leaders, set people up for success. And if you can't give them everything, then what you've got to do is you've got to negotiate what the outcome is. If I only give you 80% of what you need, then I've got to be prepared to accept 80% of the outcome as success. I can't be insisting on 100 if I've only given you 80% of what you need. It's simple, but it's a lot of hard work for me as a leader to make sure I do that.
I want to get your information here in the chat. It's GordonTredgold.com, right?
Yeah. And if you guys are interested, I'll send you a link to a downloadable version of FAST. It's about 25,000 words. It's a 2-hour read. Very, very simple. But there's a lot of things. I always tell people, you mustn't confuse simple with easy. I have a simple plan to beat Mike Tyson. When the bell rings, I run across and I knock him out with the first punch. That's a simple plan. Easy? Hell no. But simple. It's also the only plan that would work. All of the plans have been invented. I'm not going to be able to try and tire him out and knock him out in the latter rounds or win on points. I have to knock him out with the first punch or it's game over.
I've put your email here in the chat and your website here in the chat, and folks can reach out.
And I'll send you a link to the download for the PDF of the book, and people can have a look at that.
Awesome, that'd be great.
As I say, it is a process that will help you, and it will make you don't have to do a huge amount. You used to keep having to ask yourself, are we clear about our goals and our objectives? Do we know what success looks like? Have I informed everybody involved? If I go on a diet, it's not just about me. It's about making sure I tell my wife, stop bringing 2 pizzas home every day at 5 o'clock, because that's going to derail me. You know, you might not be accountable, but you can do things that might derail it. And then, do you know how you're going to be successful? Do you know how you get from A to Z? And if you do, can you explain that simply so your teams understand? And the other thing I would say is that, you know, I work in IT, which is a high-tech industry, lots of complexity. And people, you know, I'll ask them, so how does that work? And they'll tell me, oh, you don't know enough about networking. There's no way I can explain it to you. But Einstein says, if you understand it, if you can't explain it to an 8-year-old, then you don't understand it. And I tell all my experts that, and I'm not 8. So explain it to me in terms that I can understand it. And if I can't, you don't understand it. And challenging people like that, it will help you find out whether they know or not. I attended a conference, a product vendor in Fort Worth for the American Airlines crew rostering system. And I asked the guy, you know, how does the algorithm for planning the crew work? And he said, unless you've got a degree in mathematics, you wouldn't understand it. And I said, I've got a degree in mathematics, so please explain it. And he went, oh, I don't understand. So we've got to challenge people, find out whether they know or not. And if they don't know, we can't leave them in charge of the piece of work that they're doing. We've got to either replace them or help them to know. Harry, you have a question?
Sure. As I listen to you, two things.
Whoop. Accidentally muted you, Harry.
Two things came to mind. One was a great in my life. One was a great quote from Mark Twain. He wrote a really long letter to somebody, and after the length of the letter, because he didn't have time to make it shorter. And I love that statement.
Yeah,
I grew up at Procter & Gamble, and you would have loved it because the one-page memo was real, and the reason why you had one page is because they felt like it led to prioritization and simplification, and therefore much more action. So I really love the way you position this, and it's not surprising you've been wildly successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, when you're speaking on a subject, it's counterintuitive to think that it's easier to talk for an hour on a subject than it is for 15 minutes. Because if you've only got 15 minutes on the subject, you've got to distill it down to what's important and tell people in a sequence that they can understand. Whereas if you've got an hour, you can ramble all over, you can summarize, oh yeah, I forgot this bit, and add it in. But if you've got 15 minutes, it's a real skill to be able to communicate in that short period of time. And as you say, it's more effort, but it's more effort for you, but then it's less effort for everybody else that's reading it to understand. So overall, it's less effort. It's just hard for us to do. But you know, we take the choice to lead. We've got to do the hard yards, unfortunately.
And you've run more marathons since then, you said.
Yeah, I've run 12. I ran the marathon of Miami. I fell out of a salsa bar at 2 a.m, having drunk 2 bottles of wine and eaten a 22-ounce T-bone steak. And I ended up running that marathon drunk. I am not proud of it. I was just too drunk to know any better. But I did run it faster than I ran the previous marathon I did.
Well, that's awesome. Well,
but yeah, a lot of it's, you know, the thing about the marathon is that if you'd have told me 1 week before I said I'm going to run a marathon, oh, by the way, you'll run a marathon, I would have told you no chance. I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it, and I couldn't do it. And yet a week later, because I had the right sense of purpose, I was doing it to help others. Now I'm passionate about doing it. And then I'm going to go out and figure out how to do it. And it was a real eye-opener for me to see that, you know, whereas last year I couldn't do 10K, this year I'm doing 42K. And then we talked about where I did 4 marathons in 10 weeks. And I got the inspiration from that, seeing somebody do 607 marathons in 607 days. And having that, you know, that the lid lifted on what we believe we can achieve. There's a great quote, I don't know who it's from, and it's that we cannot outperform our own self-image. So if you don't see yourself as a marathon runner, you'll never run a marathon. If you can imagine yourself as a marathon runner, you've a chance of doing it. But if you set that limit on yourself, you will not outperform your own self-image. If you don't think you're $1,000 a week consultant, $1,000 an hour consultant, you would never even begin to think about charging that kind of money. If you see yourself as a $50 an hour consultant, that's where you're going to be stuck, and that's how your clients are going to see you. So we've got to create that belief and reset that expectation.
Chantel has another question again.
Yeah, you know me, Randy, I always have questions. So what's a good question, sort of, if you get to sit with the CEO, with a board director, with someone at the highest levels of an organization, and you get, 5 minutes with them, what's a question, or what's your idea for a question that would sort of cause them to reflect? So not just your typical what's on your top of your mind and blah, 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 but something that would actually cause them to sort of stop in their tracks. What would you ask?
I would ask, so I'm assuming you know what your goals are. So my question would be, do you know how step by step we're going to achieve this goal that you set? Do you know how we're going to achieve it? And there's 2 answers to that. Yeah, I'll explain it to you, or I do now because my team have explained it to me. The answer, I don't know, is akin to saying, I can't lead us to success on this initiative. Because if you don't know how to get there, how the hell are you going to lead?
Mm-hmm.
I worked for Henkel. I don't know who said they worked for Procter and Gamble, but I worked for Henkel, who were a competitor. We were going to increase our profit margin from 10 to 14%, and and somebody asked the CEO, Casper Ross, how we're going to do that, and he said we're going to increase the price and we're going to make it for less. That's how we're going to do it. It's not about revenue growth. It's about increasing the price and selling it for less. And it's also about looking at those products where we've got a 2, 3, and 4% margin and selling them and get rid of them. We'll focus on the high margin products, and we'll try and figure out how to make it for less and how we can sell it for more. And that one sentence, it was like, okay, I get this now. And I work in IT. I can't impact the sell it for more, but I can certainly help on the sell it for less. I know where my contribution is going to come into it. So that's what I would ask them.
Great question.
Yeah, but be sure to be out of arm's reach. Because not all of them like that. Not all of them like that.
That's the tricky part, right? It's sort of that humble inquiry, right? You can't walk up. Well, at least I don't feel like I can walk up to the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company and say, do you know how we're going to get there?
Well,
But
could you explain to me
right.
simply? Because then I can engage. But I went for DHL, and we were doing a cost reduction exercise, and the head of global infrastructure did this presentation of how we'd save 20 million. And I was sat next to the global CIO, Stephen McGuckin, whose nickname was El Diablo. And it was merited, but a really nice guy. And I was sat next to him, and the guy's like, yeah, and we've done this, and we've done this, and we've saved 20 million, round of applause. Any questions? And I put my hand up, and he said, yep, what's your question? And I said, where could I see that 20 million? And the temperature in the room dropped about 10 degrees, and it just went silent. And the global CIO just looked at me, put his arm around me and said, what a fantastic question. So where can we see these 20 million that you've saved? And the guy coughed and spluttered, and it was, well, we're not going to buy this, we're not going to buy that, we're not going to do this. Yeah, but we didn't have to do that anyway. You know, when my wife comes home and tells me I've saved £400 because I didn't buy those shoes, that's not a cost saving. and when I came out, my boss grabbed me by the throat and said, what are you doing? You just killed your career. You can't ask people that kind of question. And I said, yeah, but it was an innocent question. I didn't know the guy was lying through his neck about having saved money. And then they put me on charge of, he came to my office and said, because you obviously know so much about this, you're now in charge of saving 20 million next year. So when I saved, which I did, and we got rid of all of the servers. I found a thing that showed me the servers that were utilized less than 1%. When we'd gone through a massive acquisition, and the problem was, if a server doesn't cause a problem, people just ignore it because there's too much work. And we had 600 servers that we weren't using that were plugged in. And so we just got rid of them, sent the money back, got rid of the licenses. And when I did the presentation, I stood up and I said, before I give this presentation, I'm going to bring the head of controlling up, who's going to show what our budget was before, what our budget is now, and where you can see the 20 million. And only when you're happy with that am I prepared to tell you how I did it. And then I was asked to go and do the same in other regions. So sometimes asking questions can be career limiting, and it can be career advancing. Choose wisely would be my recommendation.
It brings me back to early in my career. We were in a big all-employee meeting, and the president is up announcing, you have a new president, and he's announcing these goals that are going to be 5 to 10 times better than any of our competitors. Nobody in the industry's ever done it, and we're going to be there in 2 years. And a lady raised her hands and said, how? If nobody has done this before, how are we going to do it? They got rid of her the next week.
But this is one of the things I always tell people, that my favorite goal, you know, I'm always saying people, be bold, be ambitious. And I might not have said 2 years if I didn't know how, but I always think of, and people tell me, if you don't know how, you shouldn't set the goal. And I said, yeah, but the greatest goal ever set in the history of mankind was John F. Kennedy, October 1961. By the end of the decade, we're going to put a man on the moon. Did he know how they were going to do that? Hell no. The technology hadn't even been invented. But what he did was he gave people enough time to figure it out. So you can tell people, my plan is to give us enough time, start making small steps, and we'll figure it out along the way. And if you tell people that, they'll go, okay, that might work. I can go with that. But to just tell them nothing, they're not going to engage. And if you tell them, we'll figure it out, and I'm going to use you guys to help us figure it out, now you're giving them an opportunity to contribute and get involved. And if I'd have been that CEO, I would have asked her, how do you think we're going to do it? What would be your recommendation? There's a great story about a guy that was manager of a 7th division football team, and they were in the cup, and they played Newcastle United, who were in the Premier League. And he said to the players, okay, guys, what do we need to do to win this game? And they said, we've got to go out, we've got to run crazy for 90 minutes, we've got to tackle hard, we've got to harass them, we've got to score a goal and defend like crazy. And he said, correct, now go do it. They went out, they beat them 3-0. Because they thought about how the only way they could do it. So there's no point in engaging in any other tactics if this is what we need to do. So a lot of the time, ask your people. They're closer to the front lines than we are as managers. Give them an opportunity to contribute.
Awesome conversation, Gordon.
I'm passionate about this stuff.
You are, and that's great.
I've created a graphic, Chantal, that I'll send to you. I created this thing called strategic alignment, which looks at the culture we want, purpose, mission, vision, and goals. And what you have to do is you have to fill the pyramid in and then ask yourself, does this make sense top to bottom? And you can't have a goal that we're going to be the most innovative company in the world if our culture is one of reserved, cautious, money conscious, introvert. It doesn't work. But if you can draw it in a way where every single level, okay, these two connect, that makes sense, and then the goals make sense, everybody can buy into it. But too often there's a disconnect somewhere between and I say this all the time, our vision is to be the greatest company in the world, and they say, what are your goals? And it's to fire 50,000 staff by the end of Q1. We're going to launch a new product. So, well, how does that help with the vision? And if it doesn't, your organization are now going to be going in two directions. Those that like the vision and want to achieve it, and those who are looking at the goals and are following the goals. And we want every single person pulling in the same direction and the right direction. And when you do that, boom, you will explode performance.
You said earlier you were sorry we were all Americans, but Mike is from your side of the water. So
Mike,
you have a
well, just on the camouflage thing, I must admit we did wear red coats, and that's why you could see us coming from a mile away. If we'd have had camouflage, we'd now be in charge of that small area of land, the other side of the Atlantic.
Gordon, thank you. What a breath of fresh air. And in some respects mirrors my own career and how it's happened. I'm in America because they said to me, how far away can we send him? He cannot follow rules. And some years ago, I saw a book by a couple of guys from the Gallup organization. And the title was, First, Break All the Rules.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent managers, excellent leaders were able to perform. And you are so right in everything that you said. Thank you so much for helping the Brits again conquer the world.
People tell me I don't follow rules, and I said that's not true. I follow good rules. Bad rules, I avoid like the plague, because if I don't think it's beneficial, why would I do it? Yeah. I'm an intelligent person. That's not going to work.
That's right. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. And whereabouts in the UK you're from?
Well, can't you tell? I can tell you're from the north. I'm from the bloody south.
Yeah, I thought that was the case. I wasn't sure. I'm from Yorkshire.
Yeah, I know. I could tell.
Pragmatic northern common sense.
Yeah.
When I went to Germany, they said to me, "Your Anglo-Saxon ways won't work in Germany." And I said, well, that's interesting because the Angles and the Saxons came from Germany. So I'm just bringing back what you exported.
Well, great to spend time with you, Gordon. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And as I say, I'll send the book to you. And Chantal, if you drop me an email, I'll send you the the strategic alignment template, and you can have a look at that and see whether it fits for your if when you fill it in for your organization, does it make sense? And if it doesn't, photocopy it on every photocopier and just leave it.
Yeah, I'd have to do that virtually. I don't know how it works, but
well, you can always find a printer and
right.
print it on 3 or 4 printers, so people are looking at them. This doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have done that before as well.
All right. Well,
or limiting career advancing or limiting moves. That is
that's why you don't put
ultimate question.
Yeah, but you don't put your name on it. You can leave it. You can leave it with my name on it. I don't have a career there.
Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.